Divide and rule. It is a tried and tested tactic as old as human history that has worked, particularly in conquering those easily divided. Talk of easily divided, it really does not take much to divide the MDC. Ever since the party's formation in 1999, the party has divided, subdivided and merged and divided again and again. Each time the party has divided, the members have lashed out at each other with more venomous hatred than they have ever shown to ZANU-PF, the opposition's main political opponent. When Tendai Biti and 8 other MPs broke away from Morgan Tsvangirai-led MDCT in 2014, Biti said it had been easier to work with Mugabe than with Tsvangirai. Biti was Secretary General of the party and MDCT Minister of Finance in the 2008 to 2013 NU. Tsvangirai recalled the 9 MPs out of spite, knowing fully well MDCT was not going contest the by-elections to at least try to win back the seats. Of course, Robert Mugabe was well aware there was no love lost between the MDC leaders, and he was not one to miss the opportunity to exploit this. In the bloated new cabinet, the smaller MDCN faction, led first by Arthur Mutambabra and then later by Welshman Q, had more ministers and deputy ministers than warranted by the party's elected MPs. The leaders of the two MDC factions were falling over each other in their zeal to praise Mugabe, forgetting that their primary task was to implement the democratic reforms. Biti called Mugabe unflappable, fountain of wisdom and father of the nation. Priscilla Misiharabwe Mashanga, MDCN minister in NU, was so impressed with Mugabe, she was speechless. When SADC leaders pressured the two MDC faction leaders not to participate in the 2013 elections until meaningful reforms were implemented to ensure free and fair elections, Mugabe defied SADC leaders and played his trump card. Mugabe was confident that the mistrust between the two MDC factions was so deeply rooted they would not trust each other to boycott the elections, although that was the obvious thing to do, as one MDC leader readily admitted. The worst aspect for me about the failure to agree a coalition was that both MDCs could now do the obvious, withdraw from the 2013 elections, admitted David Coulthard in his book, The Struggle Continues: 50 Years of Tyranny in Zimbabwe. Coulthard was an MDCN minister in the NU. The electoral process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw, which would compel SADC to hold ZANU-PF to account. But such was the distrust between the MDCT and MDCN that neither could withdraw for fear that the other would remain in the elections, winning seats and giving the process credibility. Mugabe got his wish. The two MDC factions participate in the 2013 elections regardless all the evidence ZANU-PF was rigging the elections and thus giving ZANU-PF legitimacy. The MDC has since been participating in the flawed and illegal elections, giving vote rigging ZANU-PF legitimacy. If there is a lesson Mnangagwa has learned from his old mentor, Robert Mugabe, it is the importance of dividing the opposition to keep them fighting each other instead of fighting ZANU-PF. Mnangagwa created the Political Actors Dialogue (POLID), grouping all the losing candidates in the 2018 presidential race. The primary purpose of POLID was to reward with perks the candidates participating in the elections, doing their bit to give the flawed election process credibility, and thus encourage them to participate in future elections. Mnangagwa has used POLID to pressure Chamisa and a few others to join. There is no doubt that Nelson Chamisa's succession following Tsvangirai's death in 2018 was unconstitutional, and a high court judgment to that effect has led to the breakup the Chamisa MDCA. A number of the party's elected officials were forced to switch allegiance to the Mwanzara-led MDCT, and those who did not were recalled last year, 2021. We can be certain that Mnangagwa has taken full advantage of Chamisa's troubles. ZEC has stopped the by-elections to fill the recalled elected official, much to the anger of Chamisa and company. President Mnangagwa has since announced the long-delayed by-elections will finally take place on 26 March 2022. Within hours of making this announcement, the social media was buzzing with the news that Douglas Munzora had met President Mnangagwa at State House. This is a follow-up to MDCT's call for inter-party dialogue, possibly leading to the formation of a new. President Mnangagwa, who was accompanied by ZANU-PF Secretary for Finance Mr. Patrick Chamisa and Acting Secretary to the President and Cabinet Mr. George Chirampa, promised to respond to the MDCT's final position as soon as possible after their own internal consultations within the government and their party, MDCT spokesperson Witness Dube said in a statement. There has been talks of Chamisa and his MDCA grouping were considering boycotting the 2023 elections following the party's recent number press campaign demanding reforms before elections. The announcement of the by-elections were going ahead will have forced MDCA to reconsider the boycott. The report of Munzora, MDC's #1 advisory, hobnobbing at State House, has left Chamisa and company fuming at the prospect of Munzora and company participating in the elections and becoming the country's main opposition party. So, President Mnangagwa is going into these by-elections and 2023 national elections confident that the divided opposition will participate in giving ZANU-PF legitimacy. Chamisa, Munzora and the rest in the opposition camp have to be content sharing the few gravy train seats ZANU-PF is giving away as bait. They are betraying the masses for 30 pieces of silver. The real big losers are the ordinary people who continue to be denied their basic freedoms and rights, including the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country, and continue to suffer the ill effects of being stuck with this corrupt and tyrannical ZANU-PF dictatorship. They are conned by the opposition to participate in the flawed elections under the false claim the opposition have winning in rigged election strategies. Until the masses wise up, they will suffer.